Welcome to another episode of the Chiro Hustle podcast. This is episode 272, and we have our good friend Patrick Porter, who I'm not going to lead in with our typical question set with you today. We usually interview about chiropractic, and we're going to talk about chiropractic for sure. But today is all about the mind and the brain and brain tap specifically and meditation. So first of all, welcome to our show.
It's great to be here, both of you. Thank you.
So tell us the brain tap story. I know there's a lot of people out there that probably think that they're meditating. They probably are doing something with, I don't know. I found meditation. I started doing YouTube stuff.
Yeah.
So tell us the brain tap story. And I know you've been cultivating this type of self-help systems for over 30 years. So what is brain tap and how did we get to where we are today?
Well, the reason I'm so involved with chiropractors, so they understand it, is when I graduated from college, at church, when they say, does anybody want to say a prayer for somebody? Well, my mother stood up and I'm like, who's sick that I don't know about? She said, we want to pray for Patrick. He just got out of college and he needs a job, And so luckily for me, Stan Fuco, who was a chiropractor in Phoenix, came up to me and said, you know what? I wanted to do something that I read about from Palmer said that there's a magical hour after the adjustment. He said, what I'd like you to do is I want you to relax my patients after adjustments. Let's see what happens. And that started us thinking about the revitalization of after the adjustment. Now, back then, we couldn't measure anything. There was no neurofeedback. Now we know that time afterwards, we can increase the efficiency of that chiropractic adjustment by up to 19%, according to our studies. So my real function, the reason I got into this myself was my dad was a very gifted alcoholic. And so our family needed some help. And the church came over and said, hey, Michael, we're going to teach you technology-driven meditation. Because my dad would not go for the normal meditation. He was a man's man. He wasn't going to sit around and chant or do any kind of mudras or breathing techniques. But and it was called the Silva method, and it used technology that we now know as isochronic tones or binaural beats. And it altered his brain in such a way that he became alcohol-free, and we did. And then what I found out was this is a product. Think about it back in the 90s. And then we had to actually have people experience it. And who better to do that than a chiropractor who I knew they were changing the brain even back then, because you could see it in people getting less stressed. The worry's gone away. The symptomology of all these different issues like PTSD, even attention deficit disorder going away just with chiropractic adjustments. So I knew that we were a good match. And then what I started to do was, how could I put this into a business model? Because I'm a therapist, a PhD psychologist. So my sessions were an hour. So when a chiropractor could see, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7, maybe even 10 people, depending upon their technique, in an hour, I'm seeing one. So I started to record things onto cassettes and have them listen to it. And then that built into a franchise. That franchise I sold, we had 108 locations. We were seeing, the average clinic saw about 160 people a day. And I still had people saying, there's no business out here. If you provide a business that gets results, you're going to be full of, your office is going to be full. Now we did market as well. You can't do anything without some marketing. Somebody needs to know something. But in 2013, after I'd sold my business and was helping out Carl Parker, and when he passed away, we were doing something called Chiro spas, because I think chiropractors are still missing this boat. What do medical doctors do? They have a medical spa, so they can be over there doing what they do in their medical practice, and they can have a group of people making money based on their credentialing, and they have all these medical procedures at their spa. Well, chiropractors can do the same thing, but with natural medicine, with medicine that does no harm, like brain tap, light therapy, ozone therapy, all sorts of different therapies they can do. So we were putting together clinics like that. That's really what got us started. And then BrainTap took off to such a point that we no longer do the spa program. We just help doctors add in a brain-based component to their practice, and we consult with doctors to get them the right solution. We have 2,300 clinics right now in America, and we're in 120 countries. We're doing gangbusters. We're just this is a time right now. I mean, you have to have a solution for stress, and the adjustment does do it. But to really get that, there's that golden window right after the adjustment. And even Heidi Havoc, who most chiropractors should know, if they don't, they should. look her up. She's actually moving to the United States. She's going to be working at UCF, and we're going to be doing some more research with her. But she even proved out the brain tap's efficiency after an adjustment, that we could increase the nervous system functioning. We average about 23% improvement, but when you add the chiropractic adjustment, we've got improvements up to 49% on people.
So what are some ways that BrainTap is unique or maybe stands apart from other meditation apps or products?
Well, the main thing is most people think meditation. They think, oh, I've got to hold my tongue in a certain way, breathe a certain way, cross my legs, do these mudras and different pranayamas and all this. We're not doing it for the same reasons they are. We say that you need to have a focused life outcome or flow. And so if you want to accomplish something in your life, probably the biggest thing, everybody says, how long will it take me to do this? What will take that? I always tell them, it's all the same. It's 6 inches away. And it happens between your ears. If you can see it here and experience it in your mind, you're going to manifest it in your life. And so part of the deal is, how do we do that? So with meditation, it takes years of practice. And I'm sorry for the meditators out there in the world, but when I'm at an event, please come over and prove me wrong on this. I've only had 2 people in the history of time, 30,000 or more brains. I know it's over 30,000 brains we have scanned. And I've only had 2 people that actually had a regulated brain after meditating, which means they could beat the brain tap. Even gurus in India. I'm very blessed. I've been to almost every major university in India. I've got to put gurus on there. And not that gurus couldn't do it on their own. We even improved their brain scan because we're adding energy into the brain. We live in an energy economy. So if we can get more ATP production, more vasodilation, more blood flow, nitric oxide release, we get a better brain. And if we get a better brain, we get a better life. We can handle and manage our stress. We have a capacity now to transform our life from the inside out. The old saying is, when you break an egg from the outside, it's death. If you break an egg from the inside, it's life. So think of your mind like the same way. You're going to break through those barriers, those glass ceilings in your own mind first, and you're going to have a new life.
That's a brilliant analogy. I've never heard that before, by the way. The egg breaking from the outside, the egg breaking from the inside. And what a fascinating journey, going over to India and doing brain scans on, gurus and, helping spread this universal intelligence. Like, that's the part that I really admire about you, is you say what you believe, and then you study and you back it with research, and then that proves validation. And there's so many people out there that want to, speak upon something, or they want to push an initiative, but they don't actually go out there and do the work. And then they want to tell somebody why they are discredited, or why they don't have validation with what they're talking about. But I love that about you, is you've done the legwork to get people to understand that the sector that you're really interested in, that you've been, drilling down on for the past 30 plus years. There's a lot of hope out there.
Oh yeah.
And if people just pay attention, there's a lot of value in it.
Mm-hmm. We've proven that you can improve your brain at any age. And when you add in, I always tell people, chiropractic's like adjusting the hardware, and we're adjusting the software, and it's a perfect combination, like salt and pepper. We want them to work together. And depending upon the doctor, they get kind of creative with that. I mean, when you think about, we need energy to the brain, and that's really, there's a show out that they have called IT, and they have a machine that runs, and all they do, the first thing, they just put their phone on this auto replay when they get a call into the help desk. It says, did you reboot your computer? Oh, that fixed the problem. And as weird as that sounds, our body needs to be rebooted. We get locked into these nervous loops, and a chiropractic adjustment is a perfect reboot. We actually have scans where we show both hemispheres regulating from an adjustment. Even when you adjust the right hand or the right foot, you're adjusting the left brain. We have the science that proves all that. And then when you can get those neurons that are just now firing together, now wiring together, you get this strong parasympathetic action that creates healing.
Well, when I use your system, I feel like I had a nervous system nap. Like, I wake up from that little chill out session on the brain tap, and I just feel like my whole, like you said, the software had a chance to reboot. And my hardware, I can't really do too much about that because I'm always like in motion. But when I actually relax and I put on the binaural beats and I have the headset on, I actually feel like my nervous system, and I do it in the morning. So I start my day out with that type of like regulation, and I'm not sure which I like more, the ones with your voice in it or the ones that are just have sound. Sometimes the sound I just like, I know you did it for a specific purpose, and I want to ask you more about that. But when you actually bring somebody in that's never meditated before, um, what is your advice to somebody to integrate a meditation lifestyle?
Well, I think that the key thing here is that most people don't have the time, energy, or effort to learn how to meditate. Their monkey mind takes over, and you can't. There's actually a saying in the Bible that says you can't put new wine in old wineskins, and that's really talking about you can't put your old beliefs or your new beliefs into the old belief system. So you have to. People have these beliefs about themselves and about their life, and when you start to slow down your brain, you start to hear that message. And we talk to ourselves, they say 50,000 words a day and 80% are negative. So the first thing you need to do is start editing, because it's there to protect us, right? Our brain is trying to protect us. And depending upon how hyper vigilant a person is, then they're not going to be able to get out of that sympathetic drive. And we need to have some way to shift the gears. And so you do that first by breathing. Breathing techniques, like people like Wim Hof are bringing that into the light, but we teach breathing techniques through brain tap. So while you're listening, someone's instructing you. And by the way, the biggest difference between the two is we know that the words we choose, the words we listen to, actually have the propensity to change 2,300 gene expressions. So Bruce Lipton was showing that. So if you're making a change in your life and you have really good thinking and you've meditated, then listen to the sessions that are music only. Or if you're doing brain training where you want to target a brainwave, like maybe as you're getting older, you're losing your balance. We've proven with the Balance Master that just by listening to brain tap SMR programs, you can improve your balance by over 30%. No exercise. Now, if you exercise too, get chiropractic adjustment, it's even going to be better. But that's a brainwave that's controlling that. So think of this central computer in our brain is controlling all these different functions in our body. And as we age, they atrophy and we get locked into certain ways of thinking.
Well, I was even talking, one of my aunts likes to send me messages about like, what can I do to improve this? And how can I like get like better balance? And the whole time she's thinking that it's an outside in perspective. Like she has to like take something. And
right. Yeah, we have a saying, you take a pill or you can take responsibility. So we want people, we have the world's greatest pharmacy is between our ears. 30,000 different neurochemicals can be released at a simple thought. So get the thinking right and all the chemical reactions will happen. And of course, we also know that, when you're really stressed out, that throws off your equilibrium. And if it happens for a long time, you'll get dementia because the left hemisphere will be moving slower than the right hemisphere.
And here's the next part of that conversation that people will have. They think it's an outside in perspective. And then I'll be like, I'll say, hey, you should probably check out Brain Tap. And they're like, well, I can't afford that. And then my initial trigger brain says, you can afford not to.
Right.
And that's the part where we're at right now is I've always told people this since I've heard it, is you're either going to invest in health now or pay for sickness later.
Exactly. One of the things that we're finding, we're turning that around, because what would you pay to get 49% more neuroplasticity and a 58% reorganization score in your brain in 6 weeks? What would somebody pay for that? You would pay a neurosurgeon $200,000, or you can buy a Brain Tap headset, which we proved out in a study with our pilot study that's now going on to 100 people down in the college in Florida that's doing the study. The reorganization skills that's when you get stressed out. Can you bring the brain back to balance? We improved it by 58%. Because as we get older, our brain gets fixed. We all know we have an elderly relative or parent, and they get upset, and they're upset all day. They can't seem to shake it. They might even wake up the next day that way. Well, that's because the neuroplastic part of the brain brain is an energy hog. And we're just like, think about this in the 70s. I don't know if you were around then, but when I was growing up, and I played sports. We had no workout room. You didn't work, you did push-ups and setups, and that's the way you did it. And then Charles Atlas comes along, and you get this Charles Atlas course, and you start doing it with broomsticks and all this. And then Arnold Schwarzenegger comes along, and we got physical fitness rooms. Now when I went back to my high school, which is St. Philip's, and I coached, I actually had to do a fundraiser to get gym equipment in our school. Last time I was back there, it was beautiful. They looked like a college because they kept getting done. Now everybody knows about physical fitness. In the 70s, if you said, "Hey Patrick, I'm going to go exercise," I'm going to think you're playing golf, tennis, running, something. Now we're all thinking going to the gym. You're going to go work out. So that was physical fitness. Now it's brain fitness. The 2020s, we're right here, right now, and I still get chills. I mean, if you could see it, all the hairs on, because this is a time people are finally realizing the most powerful thing we can transform in our life is the way our brain functions. Then all the rest of the health follows. And that's why I'm so tied in with chiropractors, because they didn't know it, but you're neuro guys. You don't have to take, I mean, I love Dr. Carrick, but you don't have to take his training to be a neuro guy. You adjust a part of the body, you're adjusting the brain. And people like Heidi Havoc have proved that. So that's the difference right now.
Well, I think what you're saying is the same amount of beautiful path that Luke and I are on, is we're doing it for the right purposes. And when you realize that chiropractic is the next wave that's been around for 125 years, but it is the next wave that people are going to be interested in, they're not going to be interested in it for the pain game. They're going to be interested in it for the nervous system game, the immune system game, the longevity game. And that's what people are getting more tuned into, is the mind and the brain are definitely components to that new age way of thinking, the 2020s, like you just said. Like,
Right.
people are going to be more curious about what they can do to not get dementia. People are going to be more curious what they can do to not get Alzheimer's. People are going to be more curious what they can do to not have cognitive decline. And what is that? Well, like you said, chiropractic is a nervous system approach. And when you actually start adjusting the spine and the nervous system starts to fire better, that means the immune system's firing better. That means the organ systems are functioning better. Hey, and that means the brain is functioning better. So I think what you were doing for the past 30 years was pioneering something, and there is a coming out party. And I think that people just don't realize that sometimes it takes, like our good friend John DeMartini will say, it takes 25 years to become an overnight success. Well, you know, if you believe in something long enough and you stick with it, it can never be about the financial gain. It has to be about the saving lives game and giving people more quality. And I think that that's where we're at right now with you, and what we're doing with the media front of chiropractic is chiropractic needs a better marketing media front. And BrainTap is something that can plug right into that to say, hey guys, if we pay attention to the neurology, we pay attention to functionality. Wow. Doesn't that sound like chiropractic?
Exactly. Yeah. I think once people realize that how they work together, I mean, they can come in and get their adjustments every, once a week, twice a week, 3 times a week, depending upon the frequency of their care. But they could be doing this at home every day. Like you said, you could do it in the morning. And by the way, that is one of the best ways to regulate the brain, because when we sleep, we should wake up and our brain should be perfectly balanced. But if we've never practiced our sleep, 2/3 of America isn't sleeping. So we need to get people sleeping in. And we found that starting your day off right, we say winning the day, you win the night. So that way you can sleep better at night, because the brain wasn't dysregulated all day long. And that happens. Some people wake up stressed, even though they were in bed for 8 hours. That shouldn't be happening.
Well, it's great marketing, because the first thing I think about in the morning, you guessed it, BrainTap.
Yeah. Great.
So what are you doing for your own personal health, and how does that include BrainTap in it?
Well, I do BrainTap at least twice a day. I have it right there by my bed. I do it before I get out of bed. And then if you came to my home, I actually have a PEMF mat with a vibratory frequency generator in it that's from MagnaWave. They work with us with BrainTap. So I have my BrainTap set up at home. And that's really because I want to do it all at one time, PEMF, sound therapy, and BrainTap. So I do that in the middle of the afternoon. If you came to my office, I have everything minus the PEMF, because that's at home. And if wherever I'm working, about 2:00 in the afternoon, I do a BrainTap session when it's appropriate. If not, it might be a little later, but every day at 2:00, your temperature drops. by 2 degrees. And that's a signal that your body needs to have a reboot. And depending upon how stressed you are, that will drag. So it's kind of like when you get behind cars on the highway and you never make up that ground. If you can keep the flow going, if you can keep the energy going throughout the day. So I do an afternoon one. I very rarely do it at night unless I'm traveling, because I sleep really well. I mean, we just did a program with BioStrap, and our companies did a competition. We don't have all the results out yet, but when we were talking, I said, if I get below a 90, it's a bad day for me. And they're like, we get 70s. That's great. I'm going, what? I mean, I was out at a party with MagnaWave, which I usually hardly ever drink anything. And I had a couple drinks, which I don't usually do. And I thought, oh man, it's going to tear up my HIV. And I had an 83 the next morning. I'm going, what the heck? So I don't know what I have to do to really wreck my nervous system. I don't want to try it, but there's usually if you have a few drinks, you'll see that on your score. You'll see your score go down. But there's the main thing that I do is eliminate mostly all the sugar. Good friend Daryl Joffrey, who's a chiropractor, you should have him on your show at some point. He wrote the book called Get Off Your Sugar and Get Off Your Acid. And he's a celebrity, he's a chiropractor, but he's a celebrity nutritionist too. And his book is really good. And his book talks all about brain tap in it too, but I didn't ask him to do that, but he put it in there because we help people get off sugar. But I watch my food intake and I do intermittent fasting. Usually I do it 6 days a week, but recently I've done it for the last, I think my streak right now is at 45 days, where I only eat 2 meals a day. And I usually eat right after I get done with my 2 o'clock session. Then I'll eat my first meal of the day, and then I'll have my second. And then usually that's a protein drink with greens and everything, just really packed with nutrition. And then in the evening, I'll eat dinner with my wife, whatever she prepares or whatever I have to. If I prepare, we're going out to dinner. But so things like that happen. And then I work out. I have. Have you ever heard of the resistance bands? Like resistance bands.
Oh yeah,
they're a good group. I interviewed them on my podcast, and I was using Katsu, which is really good. But and Katsu's that's like the Cadillac, so I have that too. But I use those even when I travel, and I could get my exercise done in 15 minutes. And since COVID, I've actually converted 35 pounds of fat into 10 pounds of muscle. So,
just talking to you inspires me to make sure that everybody understands that you can take care of yourself properly. And in marketing, we say, give them what they want and sell them what they need. And I think that that's the same way to like refocus the body's energy is, give it what it wants, which is using its calories that it gets, Mother Nature's calories, and then sell it what it needs is a full meal at the appropriate times. Yeah. And I think when you think about the body in the sense of marketing and sales, like so many people sell themselves short and cheap and fast all the time, whether it's their thoughts or the way that they feed themselves. And I was just talking to another guy right before our call, and he's like, yeah, I'm trying to limit like the amount of calories that I'm eating. And I'm like, well, 2 things that you control 100%, what comes out of your mouth and what goes in your mouth. So if you really wanted to like cut down on what you think and say, then stop saying things that you don't agree with. And if you really want to cut down on the way you look and the size of your shape, then you have to cut down on what you actually let yourself put in. So the other part of that is what you were saying earlier is 80% of the stuff that you say to yourself is bad talk. So you have to like think about that now, is reframe the way that you start having that self-talk to you, because if you want to actually have a functional, healthy lifestyle, it starts with all those components.
Also, so the chiropractors out there know, I usually get an adjustment every week. There's one of my friends, there's 3 chiropractors in town and they're all my friends, because one's right beside us here, but I don't go to her. I go to the one that hangs out, his wife hangs out with my wife. So, but he has a great program and we buy into it. He has a membership program. So I could stop by there more than once a week, but at least once a week. I played football, so I became a lifetime chiropractic client. So, if I don't get adjusted, if I miss a week, I've got to get in there right away, because my shoulder, I had a dislocated shoulder and it tweaked my back. So massage is good, but I have a massage chair, but my wife gets a massage every week. I mean, and she does acupuncture. I mean, we know that it's more than, you've got to do it all, especially, I'm going to be 60 this year. So, you've got to do it all and stay as spry as possible. And I'm part of that generation that's refusing to grow old. I want to be 80, 90 years old, still doing what I'm doing today. I don't want to be in a wheelchair or sitting on my porch watching life go by.
Well, before we get to the next question, I just want to let you know you look great, brother.
Thank you.
So what are some of your favorite ways to market BrainTap, and how do you stay connected with its community?
Yeah, well, I do a live Wednesday night, basically visualization meditation for BrainTap Nation on my Instagram. We have between our two Instagrams, we have about 70,000. So that's one way to stay in touch. We do a lot of Facebook Lives with people. We'll get them in there and we'll tell them things. If I find something that helps our practitioners build their business, then I'm going to be recommending it to them. And a lot of times it's not BrainTap all the time. It's something else that's going to add value to them in things like that. But we send out weekly to our doctor list, if you will, our what we call HCPs, healthcare providers, because not all of them are doctors, because we do a lot with energy medicine practitioners. We also do webinars on our HRV and on our BrainTap. I'm going to be doing a Q&A for our community this week where we advertise it out. We usually have anywhere between 700 to 1,000 people show up for those, and they have to pre-ask their questions because we would be there all night if we didn't. But that's usually the way we do it. And I love, we're trying to find new ways to do it, but we usually have to go to events, and set up a booth. I give a talk, they come to the booth, we let them try it out. And then we use a link that's a free link where they can use the app alone. You don't have to have the headset to that's going to give you the ultimate results, but you can also do it with just your own earphones. You don't need to use the headset. So we have that too. And we do a lot on social media with gifting that, we call it a trial experience, a 15-day trial experience. People can go. Also through my books, on the back of every book has, links to get the app and BrainTap.
Well, I think you've done tremendous with understanding what your interests were and building a business around it. And now it's helping a lot of people. And there's nothing greater than that, is to amplify something that is in your heart and in your mind and get it to a lot of people. And, it takes a long time. And it takes a lot of you believing in yourself so much not to stop. So that's impressive. But, our next idea to discuss with you is, where do you see meditation going in the next 20 years?
Well, I think just like I was saying, just like physical fitness, I think pretty soon everyone's going to have a practice of some sort, because we can't, whether they're using a guided program or they're doing it themselves, we've got to have that rest and recovery. We've gone through the phase of go after it, go get it, keep your, as Americans especially, we set goals, we achieve them, we burn the candle at both ends. And too many people are retiring and expiring. Right? You need to plan a life worth living and do something that's going to bring you energy and joy. And I think by taking the time to meditate, whatever way you do it, you could just use relaxing music, can do it, and do some breathing exercises. But most people need to upgrade their thinking. So I think what's going to happen with the science we're showing, we're actually in my little town of New Bern, we just finished a teacher research project, phenomenal results, showing them. Now they're saying, hey, I don't know how we taught without the BrainTap, because they're all stressed out. Everybody's so stressed out. Our next phase is to work with the students. In India, we have a school of 160 students called the Creative School, and they have a BrainTap in every classroom. So, we have escape rooms in America where if you get stressed out or whatever, you can go escape to them. I think they need to have a BrainTap in each of those rooms. Because what you go in there, if you're in there just kind of stewing in your own juices, you're all stressed out. Basically, your brain makes it worse, because the brain, whatever you focus on, wherever your attention is, that's what grows and magnifies. So we need to shift gears and get them thinking more positive and using it more to and realize we're all spiritual beings. A lot of people misunderstand that. They think we're physical beings trying to be spiritual. No, we're spiritual beings in a physical reality, and we need to somehow get our body and mind to work together. If not, we're disjointed, we're disconnected. So I think people are noticing that, and they'll be I mean, when I first started this, Jim and Luke, you would think, in fact, when I was in high school, my dad taught me to do this. And I was very good at sports. That's the only reason I probably didn't get beat up, because I was doing it, because I didn't really have to worry about that too much. But they looked at me really weird, because before a track meet, I would do my little meditation. But when I went undefeated the whole year, everybody started meditating with me. We'd be in the middle of the infield before the race. My quarter mile team, my mile relay, all of them would be there. I got them through a little meditation in high school, and still to this day, they meditate, because they found out that all that nervous energy, they learned how to channel it into their muscles and get that spring in their step, and know that, hey, victory is just a thought away. And but you have to, and I think more sports teams are doing it. I mean, we just did a study with Seminole Colleges. They're the 3-time national champions in golf. And they were really stressed out this year because they didn't know what they would do. They lost a few of their really good golfers. Well, we did a whole study with them. We actually helped them to get the national championship again. They were BrainTap users.
Well, something I just wanted to touch on is I'm not perfect, okay? And I go through moments where I get just spun out with ideas, and I get spun out with pressure and stress, just like everybody else. But I'll tell you what, Patrick, since I started using BrainTap consistently every day, sometimes 2 times a day, it's very unlikely for me to have those emotional struggles, and very unlikely for me to have that uncertainty.
Mm-hmm.
And almost to the fact that I think people now almost want me to start thinking for them.
Mm-hmm.
It's like people want to start siphoning off of that resource that I built up for myself. And they're like, oh, well, yeah, Jim's perfect, but I'm not. But when you start to actually practice that, you start to build up a cell, and you start to build up a resource and a surplus of this, I can do anything type feelings inside of you. And the small stuff that happens, you just don't even let it shake you anymore. And I think that that's probably the greatest testimony I could give to after I've been using BrainTap since I've jumped on the system, is the things that used to really get me. I'm just all right, well, it's time to go to the next thing. So,
yeah.
Sorry, brain.
Yeah, we tell people your brain capacity is like a glass of water, and once it's full, you can't put any more water in it. So you got to dump that water out, so you have that capacity to handle those situations. Now we might think of it like inoculation against all this stress and abuse we've been taking from the mainstream media. You've got to. They call it psychoimmunology. So you got to keep your psychology up so your immune system stays up.
So who have been some of your heroes or inspirations to help you become who you are?
Well, my dad, for one, because he got help, he was a big influence. And when we were younger, when we'd get in trouble, we actually had to read self-help books like As a Man Thinketh or Think and Grow Rich. And my dad had us read those. We had to talk about how we would apply them in our life. So that was a really good strategy. And then I think Richard Bandler, who's the founder of NLP, we're still friends today. And he helped me change. I mean, all the training I got from my dad was really good. But once I learned NLP and right directly from the source, I mean, from Bandler and Grinder, you see it from a whole new perspective. They change the way that it. And then I think the third is all my clients, because I learn from them. They're my best teachers. And it's amazing to me, even though I've been doing this for a number of years, I still get jazzed when somebody says, hey, you helped my son do this, or I was in stress and I did that. I went through painless surgery, or whatever was going on, that they thought, oh, you probably heard this a million times, but that kind of stuff doesn't get old, because that's really why you're doing it.
If you could have dinner with one person from history, who would you pick?
I would probably say Albert Einstein in his prime, not when he became a womanizer and forgot about science, so, right when he was really in his flow. I think that would be very interesting.
Well, I think it's great that you give reverence to your pops. And I think the greatest teachers are those that we have influence with.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the punishment that you were given probably made you that much more curious about how to make yourself a better facilitator for others. And when people realize that it's not about them, they're more in contribution and more joy. And so many times people think it is about them, and then they live in that ego state where there's such a peak and valley within their regulation of their personality that they're hard to really assimilate or be around. So I think that understanding that self-regulation comes from understanding these old school principles, if we will. But also, Einstein was something of a genius. I mean, his position within our framework of today's society is still rich,
Mhm.
and there's not many people that translate generationally like Einstein has done to give us that much quotable and knowledge based stuff to be able to actually still feature.
Yeah. When we're working with schools, when I wrote a book called Awaken the Genius, where I actually have Einstein coming through space. It's the cover. And it's all about accelerated learning. And when I go into this classrooms, this was in the 80s. So there's no way we were going to teach them how to meditate. So we taught them how to do what Einstein did, thought experiments. And they let us do it all day long. So sometimes it's just the way you word things, right? And if Einstein could do a thought experiment, then these kids could do it. And we had them visualizing their scores on their test and their sporting events. And they were doing all the same things, just the way you word it. So he's given us a lot of great little analogies and things of that nature.
So, do you have any other meditation miracle stories per se?
Oh, well, one of my favorite stories, I had a woman come in to see us in Virginia Beach, and she was told she had 6 weeks to live. And she had an immune disorder where her immune system was turning on itself. And she said, they told me I only had 6 weeks to live, and I have an appointment in 5 weeks with the Mayo Clinic. What should I do? And I said, move it to 7 weeks. She said, why 7 weeks? I said, because you're going to live more than 6 weeks, and I want you to go back there. So we taught her how to change her belief system. Number one is doctors don't realize how powerful they are. I tell this even to chiropractors. When you say, my mother died at 49 and she was highly suggestible. The doctor said you had 6 weeks to live. She died in 6 weeks. She was very compliant, and he could have said, hey, I think if he'd have said, hey, you're going to get better. This is just a setback. Your white marker cells are engaged. They're going to start killing off this cancer. It probably would have happened. With her, I said, what do you have to change today if you knew? I said, none of us is guaranteed one day. None of us are. So I told her the shaman have a saying. They say, live every day like it's your last, but prepare that you're going to live forever. So I think that I told this to this woman. I said, just start celebrating every day. I mean, every day is a celebration. She came in, she was wearing black. Her head was down. Her physiology was all off. And I said, when you start to feel yourself, when you start breathing shallow, you're inviting in fear, frustration, anxiety, depression. All negative emotions start with one thing, lack of breath. So roll your shoulders back, start breathing deeply. You can't help but start feeling good. And so when she started doing that, at about the 5th week, the staff goes, wasn't she the one that was supposed to die? She's coming in wearing all yellow and bright colors and orange. She's all smiling and happy. And she says, well, my appointment's in a few weeks. What do you think? I said, I'm really curious to see what they say. Well, she got the appointment. She went in and they said they misdiagnosed her. She didn't have anything wrong with her. So I'm thinking we're going to be able to document this. But we couldn't get the doctors just said, oh, the other doctor misdiagnosed her. There's no way that her immune system was doing those things. Just all over a year, they were following her and had the documentation. So they're very, very fast to say, well, it's just a coincidence. She goes, well, I'm going to this guy and we're using this device and I'm relaxing. Oh, well, I don't think it's that. But the placebo effect is 40% right now. So if you can get somebody's beliefs to shift, that's going to be it. I've had one guy that came in and this is a kind of a weird story. I've had thousands of them, but this was a medical doctor came in and he had a problem with swallowing. As soon as he would eat a meal, he would get the hiccups so bad that he couldn't eat again. Finally, after a night's sleep, he could eat. So he would wait as long as he could to eat because he'd get these hiccups that were so bad he couldn't do anything. What we found out was that in the middle of eating with his ex-wife. He was eating spaghetti. In the middle of eating that, she said she wanted a divorce. He immediately threw up at the restaurant, didn't eat anything else. But the next morning when he woke up, his gag reflex was anchored. What they say in NLP, he got an anchor for throwing up from food. So then anytime he ate food again, it would trigger that anchor. And so when we cleared that out, and by the way, he got his gag reflex removed and he still had the problem. So it's not and so in that case, what happened was once we cleared that out and he could eat again, he realized that he had been carrying it since that meal. He cleared that memory out and was free to live and breathe again. I'll tell one more story, and then because this will make sense to a lot of people that know about pain. We had a guy come in and he called on the phone. He says, I got problems every time I go to the second floor. My right foot just gets severe pain. I don't understand it. And I said, well, we work with pain control all the time. Come on in. That's why we invented the brain tap was for pain control. And so when he shows up, he's in a wheelchair with no legs. So, but he's got pain in his right foot. They call it phantom pain, right? It's there, but there's no foot there. And what we found out was he jumped out of a helicopter in Vietnam and landed on a landmine at about the second story of a building. So he jumped out when he landed. So now his brain remembers, hey, when I get up to this height, I'm going to jump out. I'm going to land on a landmine. We call it a delta imprint. So I remember after the session was done that I did with him, he was crying, and I thought, oh shit, this didn't work. And he goes, I have had pain since the 70s, and this was in the 90s. So he had pain for over 20 years, and he was able to turn it off just like that because pain only happens in the brain. There's no pain in your body at all. What you're feeling in your body is a signal going to your brain to tell you there's something wrong. And as long as you have a high degree of beta brainwave activity, you feel it. If you don't have beta, you don't feel it. That's why they put you out with gas when you're having surgery. Your body still has pain, but you're not processing it, so you don't feel it, and you can go through the whole surgery. So we just teach people to go through, and because we have receptors in our brain, like opioid receptors, we can trigger a more powerful state than opioids. I mean, I had my shoulder operated on. When I had it done, it was nothing more than visualization. My dad taught me how to do it, and I had no medication. They didn't put me out or anything. I just put myself into a mental state, and they cut my arm open, took a piece of my bone, put it over here with a screw through. So there's a lot more that's possible than we've been told about.
Well, those are some amazing stories. And as we start to wrap up this interview, where can people buy BrainTap, and do you have any promotions or coupon codes people can use for a discount?
Well, right now, the best place for them to go is to go to braintap.pro. And for 99 cents, they can get a copy of my book, Thrive in Overdrive, which is my most recent book. And then they can also download the app for 15 days. And then they'll be given, because they went through that channel, they'll be given whatever our special is in an email. It'll follow up with an email special for them.
Well, I really appreciate you being on with us today for episode 272 of the Chiro Hustle podcast. Thank you for believing in what we're doing over here. And I look forward to having a very bright future and continuing this working relationship with you and your team. And it's just impressive, the amount of knowledge and resources that you have and what you're doing with what you have a vision for. So thank you for bringing BrainTap into my home. And thank you for having this conversation with our larger audience today.
That's great. Well, I appreciate it. And remember, we're on a mission to better 1 billion brains, and you're helping us do that. So I appreciate it.
All right. Well, we want you to have a blessed rest of your day, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you, guys. Bye.
Thank you,
See ya.
Patrick.